I want to now bring in CBS News Middle East contributor Courtney Kealy. So Courtney, what can you tell us about this ceasefire agreement?
Well, I can tell you that it really came from the Pakistani side as interlocutors. And while the Prime Minister of Pakistan did tweet this out, that they were speaking and trying to get to this ceasefire, really what my sources are telling me that it was the Deputy Prime Minister and what's called the Field Marshal, which is the equivalent of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and his name is Deputy Prime Minister is Ishaq Dar. The Field Marshal is Asim Munir. And Field Marshal Asim Munir has been invited to the White House before. He does have a strong relationship with President Trump. And so he worked with Vice President J.D. Vance, and so did the Deputy Prime Minister, to really get down to what the details will be. So we're just hearing the breaking news that they've gotten to this point, but I can also tell you that the Pakistanis, according to sources close with the Iranian government, you can talk to them there, say that the Iranians really want this ceasefire. They have a unique relationship with Pakistan as their neighbor, and Pakistan has not only the unique relationship with Iran, but a unique relationship with the U.S. Israel really doesn't factor in this because Pakistani doesn't recognize Israel as a country, as the right, the right to have a country. So Israel and the Israeli airstrikes will have to see if there's Turkish and Egyptian involvement. But right now, the will for a ceasefire, I'm hearing, according to sources, the Iranians do have the will. And they haven't closed the Strait of Hormuz down, but the chokehold, the narrowest point, which is about 2 miles, that's where they could have put in a toll booth, like literally just ships and blocking ships. That's where they would open it up. It's their territorial waters. That's something they're very likely to do. The Iranian people, there'll be relief not being under airstrikes, but there'll be worry. And there won't be things on the table necessarily like Hezbollah and a ceasefire in Lebanon.
Courtney Kealy. Courtney, I want to circle right back with you, but first, I want to get to CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang. Weijia, what are you hearing from the White House about the ceasefire agreement?
Well, we know that President Trump right now is in the Oval Office, and that means he's working there. There's a Marine sentry standing guard. So we don't know, if he's making phone calls, whether he's getting more briefings, but certainly this announcement that he made on Truth Social was the result of intense talks and negotiations throughout the day. The president started today, this morning, with that very dire warning for Iran that if they did not meet this 8 p.m. deadline to reach a deal and to open the Strait of Hormuz, that an entire civilization would die. And we were at that press conference yesterday with President Trump in which he said essentially the same thing, that he was prepared to bomb all of Iran's power plants and bridges. But, negotiations, again, as I mentioned, which were being brokered by the Prime Minister of Pakistan, apparently went well enough for the president to hold off on that massive bombing campaign. And it was just after 6:30 that he posted on Truth Social. And we know that the Strait of Hormuz was a really important part of any deal to President Trump because, of course, that is the waterway that oil tankers have to get through, and they have been avoiding because of dangerous conditions that Iran has created. And because that impacts the oil supply, gas prices here at home have been spiking. So that was very important to the president. And he said that Iran has agreed to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the strait. And that is why he, in turn, agreed to hold off on bombing and any attacks for the next 2 weeks. He also sounded really optimistic in this post, saying that they are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran, and that this 2-week period would give them time to finalize that deal. So this is a major change, of course, for what the president was prepared to do. And we are still waiting to hear more details about how all of this came together. What I can tell you is that we do not expect to hear directly from President Trump anymore tonight because the White House has called what is called a lid, and that signals to the White House press corps that we will not be seeing him again tonight.
Yeah, it seems like this all happened so fast, but it's hard to tell what was really happening behind the scenes. But Weijia, we were looking at 45 minutes from now, an 8 p.m. deadline. You're insinuating that the president's inside right now. Talks are happening. And who are those talks with? I think we keep asking that. But where is this negotiation process going from here?
Well, again, the Pakistani prime minister has really been at the center of this because Iran and the U.S. were not going to directly hold talks. And we know that Vice President Vance was representing the U.S. all day today. And he actually made public remarks, and he said that he hoped Iran did the right thing. He was confident that there would be an answer from Iran on whether they would agree to a deal before the deadline, and Vance ended up being right. Of course, we now know he was heavily involved with the talks, so he would know. But in terms of what happens now, obviously this is a very fragile situation, and we have seen, agreements blow up in a matter of days, sometimes hours. And so it's a very sensitive time as we look to the next 2 weeks to see what kind of progress can be made. But the president isn't necessarily looking just for a ceasefire. He has made that clear that he wants a long-term peace deal. But there are other parties involved. Obviously, we need to hear from Israel. We need to hear more directly from Iran, even though they have signaled optimism as well that there was substantial progress today to try to find this long-term solution. But the president also mentioned that he believes the military objectives that he laid out are essentially complete, and that is why he can now focus on this long-term deal. What we don't know is whether those almost apocalyptic threats that the president was making about Iran's civilian infrastructure still hold. If at the end of 2 weeks there is not a formal agreement, will he follow through with bombing all those bridges and power plants? That's still a question that is unknown as well.
All right, Weijia Jiang. Weijia, thank you. Let's get back to CBS News Middle East contributor Courtney Kealy. So, Courtney, let's talk more about this ceasefire agreement. We were all kind of on pins and needles waiting for this deadline, waiting to find out what would happen. But what are the thoughts in the Middle East for civilians there? They all knew about this, too.
Right, we're 45 minutes from what that deadline was supposed to be. And it's really interesting because Pakistan has really taken the center stage. So while people in America were bracing for it, of course, everyone else was too, especially in Iran. Now, Pakistani sources tell me they really want to make sure that people understand that it was Field Marshal Asim Munir and the deputy prime minister who really had those negotiations. They were going back and forth, and that they had the real effort. Prime Minister Sharif obviously leading the charge. People I'm talking to in Iran that are in touch with the Iranian regime government, the National Security Council, the foreign minister, the Speaker of Parliament, they all want this ceasefire, and they say the strait will be open. Now, there'll be relief among Iranians that the bombs are stopping, but not relief that the regime is coming to an end. That will still be in place. They still have all the issues with the regime. And in places like southern Lebanon, where there's their operations with Israel, and all the way up north into Beirut, that will be a separate thing that will have to be dealt with separately. So we're talking about airstrikes in Iran, the president moving away from ending of a civilization or power plants. Although I have to say Israel did hit some railroads and places today, but it is the Iranian regime that has the will to make this happen, efforted by the Pakistanis, and the Pakistanis really do have a unique relationship where they can go between Iran and the U.S., and that's what why this really happened. So we'll have to see what happens in Iran, but will the skies go quiet? When will the strait open? When will shipping go through? How will the Iranian people be? How will they react? Will the regime continue with its executions and its killings? And it's just it's internet blackout, and people still being scared to walk the streets after 4 p.m. in the evening.
Yeah, Courtney Kealy. Courtney, thank you.